Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. Nicole Rencher again with KLRD presenting the budget for the Topeka Correctional Facility. In the audience is Keith Bradshaw, the Executive Director of Contracts and Finance, who can answer any questions after the presentations. So if we can turn to page 2 to get started on the fiscal year 25 analysis. The 25 approved amount was 23.7 million, and the 25 agency request was 25.2 million. This is an increase of 1.5 million or 6.3% above the approved amount. These changes are due to a reappropriation of 43,800 in unspent correctional institutions building funds, which the agency plans to use for capital improvement projects. Page 3, item 4, shrinkage reduction. The agency revised estimate adds 2.4 million SGF to reduce the shrinkage allocation. Funds would be transferred from the KDOC central office and added to each correctional facility, so it does not increase the state's total budget. Item 5, shift differential adjustment. Agency revised estimate adds 381,000 SGF to convert previously approved shift differential pay to base pay in fiscal year 25. These funds are also transferred from the KDOC central office and added to each correctional facility. Item 6, utilities. The agency revised estimate deletes 639,000 SGF in expenditures for utilities to better match expected expenditures in fiscal year 25. The agency revised estimate deletes 615,000 in all other adjustments, including 506,000 SGF. Are there any questions for fiscal year 25 before I move on to fiscal year 26?
Any questions on 25? Let's go to 26.
Okay, fiscal year 26. So the fiscal year 25 approved amount was 23.7 million. The agency request was 25.4 million, which is 1.7 million or 7.1% above the approved amount. There were no enhancement requests. So the changes were the item 2, the shrinkage reduction, same as last year. Agency, same as the previous fiscal year. Agency added 2.4 million SGF to reduce the shrinkage allocation. Item 3, same as the last fiscal year, agency request adds 546,000 SGF to convert previously approved shift differential to base pay. Item 4, utilities, agency request deletes 624,000 SGF in utilities to better match expected expenditures. Item 5, all other adjustments. The agency deleted 597,000, including 491,000 SGF in all other adjustments. And then item 6, the LBC recommendation includes deleting 105,000 SGF for premium pay for bilingual officers. Any questions before I move on to very quickly touch on the capital improvement section?
Any questions on 26? All right, let's go to capital improvement.
Okay, just very quickly, the agency submits a revised estimate of 43,871 off from the Correctional Institutions Building Fund. These are all reappropriated funds.
Any questions from the committee? All right, thank you. We'll close the budget hearing on the Topeka Correctional Facility. Let's move on to Winfield.
Starting on page 2 again to do the fiscal year 25 analysis. The 25 approved amount was 25.7 million. The agency revised estimate is 28 million. This is an increase of 2.4 million or 9.5%. There was an SGF reappropriation of 83,629, which the LBC deleted. The agency also carried over 24,000 in unspent special revenue funds, which the agency plans to use for capital improvement projects. No supplemental requests. The next page, item 4, the agency added 2.1 million SGF in salaries. This incorporates previously approved shift differential pay to base pay. Action does not increase the total state budget as funds are transferred from the KDOC central office budget. Number 5, inmate incentive pay. Agency added 388,000 SGF for an increase in inmate incentive pay. The 24 legislature approved a request to increase the incentive pay. This action does not increase the total state budget as funds are transferred from the KDOC central office budget. Item 6, FTE shift. The agency deleted 2 FTE positions and added them to Lansing Correctional Facility. This adjustment reduces Winfield to the 24 actuals. And item 7, all other adjustments. The agency deleted 75,000, including 68,000 SGF for all other adjustments in fiscal year 25. Are there any questions before we move on to 26?
Any questions for the analyst on 25? Let's go to 26.
Okay, the 25 approved amount was 25.5 million, and the agency request is 28.2 million. This is a 2.6 million or 10.3% increase from the approved. No enhancement request. Item 2 was the shift differential adjustment. Agency added 2.3 million SGF in salaries. The addition incorporates previously approved shift differential pay to base pay. Item 3, the FTE shift, agency deleted 2 FTE positions, added them to Lansing. Item 4, the inmate incentive pay, agency added 388,000. These are all just like continuations from the previous fiscal year, so. Item 5, all other adjustments, the agency deleted 92,000, including 91,000 SGF for all other adjustments. And then the LBC recommendation included deleting 84,000 SGF for premium pay for bilingual officers. Any questions before I quickly touch on the capital improvements?
Any questions on 26? Let's go to capital improvements.
Okay. The agency, page 6, the agency submits a revised estimate of 24,525, all from the Correctional Institutions Building Fund. This is all reappropriated funds.
Any questions for the analyst? All right, thank you very much. And Kyle, do you want to make a note of the correction?
In your packets, there should be a new printing of the KDOC budget for the corrections that were associated with some of the numbers in the tables yesterday, and also a new printing of the governor's differences for the noted new LCF warehouse correction yesterday as well.
All right, thank you, Kyle. We will move on to the Kansas Department of Transportation. We will open that budget hearing.
Thank you, committee members. I am Kyle Anderson. I will be presenting the Kansas Department of Transportation budget. So starting with the first page, the agency's revised request for 2025 is $2.6 billion, and the request for fiscal year 2026 is $1.7 billion. Moving to page 3, the revised request of $2.6 billion is an increase of $233.3 million, or 10%. This is further broken down in figure 4, the summary of the budget table. The agency is not SGF funded, so there is no SGF reappropriation. The agency also made no supplemental requests for fiscal year 2025. The first other change increase is associated with contracts for highways and bridge-related projects, primarily in the IKE program. And this is a request for $179.4 million. The large sums of contractual lettings in the KDOT budget are in part due to the fact that when a project is set to start, it may be a multi-year project, but those projects are allotted in full in the budget the first year, and then set out in the segregated cash flows for each year. But the agency is starting a large number of highway and bridge related projects in fiscal year 2025, so there's a large increase in the expenditures for this particular area in fiscal year 2025. Item number 4 is construction of buildings-related expenses, and the revised request is for $28.7 million, and this is for modernization of various KDOT buildings across the state. And a substantial amount of this is attributable to expenditures for the District 1 headquarters here in Topeka. Item number 5 is an item of architects and engineers, and these are contractual services for architects and engineers that are required to fill in gaps in the employees for the agency itself. Item number 6 is innovative technology aid to locals of $9.9 million in financial assistance. That is monies that are expended out to local communities to help improve the roadway systems with various innovative technologies to improve mobility, access, and other measures associated with up-and-coming transportation-related technological advancements. Item number 7 is regular maintenance program salaries and wages. This is an increase of $4.1 million, and the request also includes 45 new FTE positions and is associated with increasing need of field maintenance employees with the IKE program across the state. Item number 8 is construction land and interest in land. This is an increase of $2.2 million. These are purchases of land and interest in land associated with construction projects on roadways and buildings that are taking place in the starting in fiscal year 2025. Item number 9, construction inspection program salaries and wages, is a request for $1.7 million and 26 FTE positions. The request entails additional employees within the construction inspection program. These are employees that do oversight of construction associated tasks and material testing to complete the functions for new roadway installations and other related field impact studies for the construction projects. Item number 10 is the local projects program salaries and wages. This is a decrease of $197,435 in 2 FTE positions. This is a reduction in the anticipated number of employment required positions, in part due to vacancies that the agency is currently facing. Item number 11 is the Office of Security Program salaries and wages. This is a decrease of $257,347 in 1.5 FTE positions. And the reduction is associated with a research assistant program or position set that was completed for the year and no longer necessary. Item number 12 is the Operations Support Program salaries and wages. This is a decrease of $668,984 in 9.5 FTE positions. And the decrease is associated with a reorganization where some of the operations support program elements were moved to the administration program and are now being carried out at the KDOT headquarters itself instead. Item number 13 is the all other adjustments, and this is a decrease of $1.5 million and 1.75 FTE positions. The FTE position reduction is a result of a reshuffling of a number of positions, including 3 positions from transportation planning and modal support, partially offset by an increase of 1 position of the design right-of-way program and 0.25 FTE positions in administration. And the expenditure reduction is associated with a reduction in contractual services for transportation planning and aviation programs, as well as assistance in the rail and freight program. Are there any questions for fiscal year 2025? Yes.
Questions, Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you help me understand, I'm comparing the gold sheet here on item 13, all other adjustments. And it seems to me that, because the agency said delete 1.5 million, LBC had no changes, but it's showing as different from the governor's recommendation, but it looks the same. Help me out here, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the monetary values in the governor's recommendation are the same, but the FTE positions for those requests are different. The governor made no FTE request changes in association with the funding requests.
Any further questions? All right, let's go to 26.
The agency's 2026 request is for $1.7 billion. This is a $647.8 million reduction, or 27.8%. The agency made no enhancement requests. The first item change is, again, for architects and engineers, and this is a $10.1 million request. And as with fiscal year 2025, these are contractual architects and engineers that are required for construction-related projects to fill gaps in the current employment of the agency. And item number 3 is construction buildings, a request of $5 million. And the request is predominantly associated with the Topeka Surplus Property Warehouse Building and construction at the Great Bend Construction Office. Item number 4 is the regular maintenance program salaries and wages. This is a $3.9 million request and 53 FTE positions. As with fiscal year 2025, this is an increase in anticipated regular maintenance employees required across the state for various projects within the construction and maintenance tasks across the state. Item number 5 is innovative technologies aid to locals of $2.5 million. And this is, again, community-related grants for improvements in technological advancements and mobility assistance-related projects. Item number 6 is construction inspection program salaries and wages. As with 2025, this is an increase in positions and money of $1.7 million and 27 FTE positions. And again, these positions are to fill the construction oversight and testing purposes required for carrying out the construction projects across the state. Item number 7 is transportation planning and modal support program aid to locals. This is a $1.3 million request, including $150,000 from the state highway fund that is aid granted to local governments for traffic safety and transit-related projects. Item number 8 is the administration program salaries and wages. This is an increase of $1.3 million and 8.75 FTE positions. The request is for 5 new IT positions and 3.75 accounting and auditing related positions within the administration department. Item number 9 is the design right-of-way program salaries and wages. This is an increase of $1 million and 9 FTE positions. And these are positions related to field surveys, inspections, geotechnical surveys, and drafting of new highway improvement projects across the state. Item number 10 is the Office of Security Program salaries and wages. This is a $22,020 request and 1.5 FTE positions. The positions are related to expected needs in the upcoming year associated with various oversight tasks. Item number 11 is Operations Support Program salaries and wages. This is a decrease of $296,594 and 6.5 FTE positions. And as with fiscal year 2025, these functions were moved to the administration department at the KDOT headquarters. Item number 12 is construction program land and interest in land, this is a decrease of $2.8 million. As with the note for the bridge and highways construction in 2025, with the decrease in letting projects for fiscal year 2025, or 2026 associated with the large increase in 2025, there's less land needed to be purchased for new projects in 2026. Item number 13, construction, highway, bridge, and contracts. This is a decrease of $675.3 million. As noted in the previous item, with all the large letting projects in fiscal year 2025, there are much fewer projects being let in fiscal year 2026, leading to a decrease in the expenditures with respect to that of the comparative 2025 budget. Item number 14 is all other adjustments of $3.6 million, and this is largely attributable to changes in debt service and administrative contractual services. Any questions for fiscal year 2026?
Any questions on 26? All right, no questions on 26. We can move on.
Moving on to the capital improvements projects. The fiscal year 2025 request is for $1.8 billion. This also includes all of the road construction projects, not just the building associated capital improvement projects. Item number 1 is rehab and repair of $1.5 billion. Again, this includes the road construction related projects, which account for roughly $1.3 billion of that. 5.2 is for rehab and repair of various KDOT buildings across the state. $659,080 is associated with re-roofing projects of buildings and salt storage facilities across the state. Salt and sand storage facilities across the state. $4.6 million is for modernization of the Yates Center and Altoona sub-area facilities. $268,993 is for construction of a new Pratt salt storage building. $1.9 million is for updates to the Dodge City main shop electrical systems and extension of the main bay. And $23.6 million is associated with the District 1 headquarters building. Item number 2 is the land and interest purchases of $36.7 million, and this is for land and rights to use land for roadway and building construction projects across the state. Items 3 and 4 are debt service related. Item 3 is the debt service principal of $106.1 million on distributed bonds, and item 4 is $71.3 million towards the interest on those bonds. Our fiscal year 2026 is a request of $878.3 million for capital improvement projects. Item number 1 is rehabilitation and repair of $661 million. Again, this also includes the roadway projects, which account for roughly $550 million of that. The building-related capital improvements include $5.4 million for rehab and repair of various buildings across the state, $446,758 to re-roof various buildings and salt and sand storage facilities across the state, $5.1 million for modernization of the Osage City and Lyons sub-area facilities, $285,133 for construction of a new Osage City salt storage building, $2 million for updates to the Horton main shop electrical systems and bay extension, and $2.8 for construction of the Topeka surplus property, and $1.7 for the Great Bend construction office. Item number 2 is land and interest, which is a request for $31.7 million. And again, these are purchases of land for construction-related projects. Items 3 and 4 are again debt service principal and interest of $109.4 million in principal payments and $75.9 million in interest payments.
Questions on capital improvements? All right, thank you, Kyle. We will move on to the agency.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee. Brendan Yorkie, Division of Administration with KDOT. I handle a lot of I'm the assistant director. I handle some of the fiscal duties, including the budget. I'll just providing sort of an overview or some slides just to sort of contextualize, some of the information that Kyle presented. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is revenues, and so how we fund the transportation in Kansas. So as Kyle mentioned, we're not funded by the state general fund. We're primarily funded by state highway fund, and that it receives revenue from a variety of different sources: motor fuels tax, sales tax, registration fees, and also sales tax. And one thing I'll note too on this slide is also those motor fuels taxes, a portion of which goes to the Special City County Highway Fund, about a third of those. That is distributed to cities and counties or local governments by formula and statute. It appears in our budgets just as a pass-through, and so it's sort of as a record of that distribution. And so, again, those are just pushed on out to the locals through a formula and statute in there. So again, continuing with revenues, the biggest three sources of revenues for our budget or for us is sales tax, motor fuels tax, and also federal funds. Sales tax, as you can see there, is the biggest source. We get 18% of sales tax receipts coming into the highway fund. One thing I'll note about federal funds, we receive those on a reimbursement basis, so we have to spend the money first on our projects, and then we get reimbursed from the feds. And then motor fuels tax is there as well, and that's currently still at 24 cents per gallon as far as the tax on fuel for regular fuel, and then for 26 on diesel. The other item there, just I'll note and I'll get into later, is there's a revenue item there for bond proceeds. I'll have a couple slides on our bonding later in the presentation. So this is our 2026 kind of profile for revenues. About 2.6 billion is what we're expecting. Some modest changes in sales tax as far as increases, but the biggest driver is we are going to bond more in 2026. So we're going to have an increase of about 200 million in bond proceeds. Here's just sort of a historical profile where we've been and where we are now. As you can see, sales tax, that's the one in blue. That's been a big driver of the increases that we've seen in recent years. Motor fuels tax stays pretty flat. And so that's one source that is an important source, but again, not a growing source for us overall. And then the federal funds is one, again, we get additional money from the bipartisan infrastructure law from the feds. That was additional federal money. In addition, we also go after discretionary grants for that as well. And here's just some of the recent awards that we got for federal grants. So some pretty significant awards or amounts. The I-35 Santa Fe, that's in Johnson County, that was a big one for us. But not to overlook the one at the bottom, we did get a grant also for improving or modernizing our crash data collection. And so we get crash data from local law enforcement to help inform our data for safety purposes. And so, again, that was a big award that we got, an important one that was awarded to us. So just talking a little bit about bonding, when it was originally envisioned, the original financing plan for Ike, we estimated at that time we were going to need to issue $1.2 billion in bonds. And we haven't deviated from that. There's sort of the profile, as you can see, as far as how that we are going to probably structure those in the next 4 years. We have issued already $200 million in 2025. That has gone out, and we plan to issue another $400 million in 2026. We are, however, restricted to a cap on the amount we can bond. So that's 18%. So debt service cannot exceed 18% of revenues. And so under that cap, the percentage you see there, that's where we expect to be, again, assuming we bond, we're bonding $1.2 billion for Ike, that's where we'll be as far as our percentages relative to the cap. And so we are well below at least the cap as far as that is concerned. And that cap is in statute, so we have to abide by that. In addition to, I'll just also mention, sort of related to bonding, but not directly, but we also have a lot of financial oversight that looking at our, as far as our bonds are rated. In addition to that, we have to issue a financial report every year that's audited. So there's, in addition to the cap that we see have in statute, we have a lot of people looking at our financials. So this just shows you sort of the debt profile going out to 2024, 2048 for both the T-Works bonds that we issued and also in Ike. And so it just shows you what our debt load will be in the future going forward. Sticking with revenues, I like to include this slide because it just shows where we've come and how far as far as the transfers are concerned. So we used to talk about transfers as the ordinary transfers and the extraordinary transfers. The extraordinary transfers were the general fund, the monies that we transferred to the general fund and other agencies. Those are obviously, we haven't had those in some years now. And so again, just showing where we've been for the elimination of the extraordinary transfers. We're currently still at, where we should be as far as the ordinary transfers. Ordinary transfers are the ones to highway patrol, revenue. These are the ones that we normally would see are normally part of our projections that we include in the Ike program. So I'm going to flip over to expenditures. So clearly, as you can see on the graph, our biggest our expenditures is for our construction program. And that number there is all inclusive. It's not just construction, but also construction related activities, right of way, utilities, design. And so it's an all inclusive cost there. Clearly, that's the biggest one, our biggest part of our program, of our budget at 1.8 billion. Here's the profile for, or at least for 2026. As you can see, it drops significantly, as Kyle mentioned in this presentation. There's kind of two reasons for that big drop. One is lettings. So the way we budget is we budget for the entire amount of the project in the year that it's let. And so that full cost is in the year that it's let in the budget year. And so that creates some variation from year to year, as you might say, depending on the construction projects. But the other quirk or other thing for part of that is, the other factor is bonding. So when we issue bonds, what we do is we back out of the construction dollars the amount of the proceeds of the bond because we don't want to double count that in the debt service going forward. So there's kind of two things that you're seeing there as far as the change in construction program numbers from 25 to 26. And I got a couple slides that kind of just illustrate that a little bit better. So here's the sort of the profile, the project lettings we had when we issued the budget in September. As you can see, we had quite a bit of variation as far as project lettings, and this does not include any adjustments for bonding, the bond proceeds. This is just strictly the lettings numbers. And so, as you can see, we have our budget can increase quite a bit and decrease or bounce around quite a bit of variation based on the lettings. Now, in November of last year, though, we did make an announcement on some projects for changing the timelines on those. And so this is sort of the effect of that. It kind of evened out in sort of the 25 and 26, some of those large variants that you see. But that was the announcement we made last November on those changes to project timelines. So something that I think Kyle mentioned, and I'm going to mention here, just as an example, again, an example of the letting view versus what we call the payout view or the cash flow view. So again, this is an example using the Pope Quincy project, about $239 million. So in the budget, you'll see, again, the full cost of that project in the year that it's let, so 2025. But the way we actually plan the project or, for payouts is on a cash flow basis. And so sometimes you might hear us talk about budget versus cash flow or the payouts. And so that's actually how that sort of project will sort of pay out over time. So the next thing on expenditures I want to flip to is, so you'll see the project or the budget sort of broken down by program in the budget analysis. And that's the normal, that's the standard way we talk about it as far as in committee. But also another way we kind of think about the budget is our operations side and our construction side. The operations side, that includes the salaries and wages, sort of IT costs, includes costs for highway maintenance, including snow and ice, for heavy equipment, and also the utilities for our buildings. But the key thing to remember, or I think it's important to mention about the operations side of the budget is it has a dollar limitation. So we have a cap on the amount that we can spend. That number isn't necessarily, it's sort of commingled in the budget document or the budget analysis that you see from Kyle. And so I'm going to kind of show you where that is sort of a line item in the appropriations bill. But the other thing on the construction side, we don't have a dollar limitation. And so that's just for all construction activities and related items. So this is not sort of this is not House Bill 2007. This is sort of an example of that line item that you'll see in the budget, so or in the appropriations bill. This is from, I think, last year. But it's just an example of where that number comes from. So it is a line item that we have to budget to for us on the operations side. And so a lot of times that's why you might hear us talk a lot about agency operations, because again, we're trying to work within, work with that cap. And so here's sort of the trend for agency ops over time, sort of about since 2014. There's been some increase during Ike as we ramp up on projects. We had to make some commensurate increases on the operations side. That's for why you see some of those increases starting in 2021. And so talking about diving a little bit deeper on our AC operations budget for 2025, the approved budget was $344 million. And then so in order to, I think Kyle mentioned talking about the salary increases and the FTEs. Again, we try to maximize our existing resources, not trying to, in terms of not utilizing supplementals to fund some of the priorities that we need. And at the time when we submitted the budget, that priority it was making sure we get some additional positions. This is sort of how we did it, how we stayed within the existing or the approved budget. You can see we had an offset. We'd sort of reallocated some expenditures in there. The capital outlay decrease, that will be offset partially from a separate funding source that we have that's not included here. So we do get, when we do have old equipment that we sell and auction off, we are able to keep some of those auction proceeds to then reinvest in our equipment. And so some of that will be able to use to help offset that reduction there that you see on the HC ops side. That's good for the short run, again, but over the long run, we're looking at our equipment plan on our, for capital outlay or for heavy equipment, to really see strategically, how we do still have sort of somewhat of a backlog in purchasing that equipment, but how we then strategically look at it with a long term, tackling that. This just shows, again, in our submitted budget, how we did AC ops there. And so that $3 million that was associated with the FTE increases that you see as well. So we kind of split that over 2 years. And then we had some contractual services also in there as well. But overall, an increase of only about 1.1%. So we try to keep things pretty modest in our budget for HC ops as far as our submission. This slide just kind of compares where we're at as far as compared to the approved, where in our submitted budget, governor's budget, and then HB 2007. And so the only thing I would mention here is that we did not, again, we try to work within the approved budget for some of those positions and those additional positions. We did not request any supplementals. We would appreciate at least consideration of the higher AC ops amounts for our budget. However, it's understood, HB 207 is sort of the framework that we're working from. At a minimum, we would at least appreciate an approved, or a consideration of the approved budget in 2025, not necessarily for positions, but for flexibility on snow and ice. Again, it's not necessarily about hiring additional positions here in the current year. This would be more about ensuring that we have the total HDOS budget, that flexibility for snow and ice events that may occur. And so this last event we had was about a $10 million price tag. I know we're still trying to looking at replenishing materials for rock salt for any other impending event that may come. And so having it at that approved level, the 344, just gives us that flexibility for this year. Just a couple of things on the FTE request. And so our FTE requests stem from, if you can see that uptick in the graph towards the end. So the top line is FTE, bottom line is headcount. So last summer, we got really close to our approved FTE level. And that was primarily because what we think are two factors. One, we revamped our recruitment process or recruitment efforts. We think that had an effect on bringing more people in the door. In addition to that, there were also the market pay adjustments done by the legislature, we think also had an effect on getting more people or hiring more people at KDOT. And so while it seems like a problem, it's actually a good thing of getting most of those folks in, but it also left us, what we, at least at the time, concerned that if that trend continues as far as the rapid hiring, that we would have to pull back or wouldn't be able to do some of the things that we need to do. And so what was guiding some of the requests for 25 and 26 also was a staffing plan or a staffing study that we did a few years back to try to sort of, as far as strategically guided what we were thinking about for staffing in our submission, our budget submission. So this is similar to the other slide, just shows the FTE comparisons between the three budgets. Just there is a misnote there. So in HB, the LBC or HB 2007, that 25 number should be 2279. And in 2026, that should be 2282. But regardless, so this is sort of a comparison of what we were looking for and then what's been included in the governor's budget and what's sort of envisioned in House Bill 2007 or by the LBC. At this time for 2025, we can manage within the approved level. So we've since had, especially in the fall, higher turnover than we were expecting. So that brought some of our headcount down. So we can manage, so if we're halfway through the fiscal year, we can manage at the approved level for the rest of the year. We do think there may be an uptick in the spring. I mean, these aren't necessarily always seasonal, but we do see some seasonal hires when we start increasing or having for our construction season in the summer. We start to see an uptick in staffing in the spring. And so that, again, prompted the request that we're looking for in 2026. So the level is probably under the governor's recommendation. That will give us enough running room so we're not hitting that 2288 or the number, so we can hire those people, that folks that we would like to hire. This is sort of how that looks. And so the main focus on the FTEs is our equipment operators, engineers, engineering technicians. Those are what we call in our regular maintenance program, in our construction inspection program. That was sort of mentioned in Kyle's analysis. So these aren't going to be necessarily folks here at headquarters. These are going to be out across the districts, across the state, in our sub areas, doing that field work. And most of it, as you can see, there are some decreases there. It's a net increase. So we did try to reallocate the best we could those vacant positions that we had that we could then sort of prioritize to our regular maintenance and construction inspection programs. The last couple slides just deal with, so these are some specific targets in the Ike legislation for preservation and for modernization and expansion. So these are some requirements that we have in the legislation for those two things. And so this just shows where we are relative to preservation based on the targets. We are doing well and on our way for preservation targets as far as from the halfway mark and then going forward. And then on our modernization and expansion. So we still have a little bit of work to do on District 2 and District 4, but we expect to have those lettings will occur this year to get us on target for the mid-year benchmark for modernization and expansion. And that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks for the budget. And I'll happy to stand for questions.
Questions for the agency? Representative Resman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On slide number 15, budget versus cash flow, it mentions the Polk Quincy Viaduct.
Yes.
Okay, is that a 4-year project? Is that why it's separated 25, 26, 27, and 28?
I will check. I believe so, but I will double check if that is 2 or 3 years. So
Okay, and it was budgeted for 239 million?
yes.
Okay, what happens in year 27? Let's say there's 75 million, I guess, that would pay out. If they run into a problem and it exceeds that 75 million, how do they go back and get additional funds?
There would be an assessment. I mean, we would essentially, there'd be sort of reevaluation and look to see what funds we do have available for change for that project. I mean, that does happen with other projects. So yes, that does get accommodated or worked through that process.
Can you explain ordinary transfers and extraordinary transfers?
Yeah, that was just sort of the way we kind of talked about transfers in general way back. So the extraordinary transfers were, so for the longest time we had what we call ordinary transfers, and those were sort of what we had, or historical transfers. Those are the ones we've done routinely for a number of years. Those were to agencies such as Highway Patrol, Wildlife and Parks, Department of Revenue. So mostly agencies that had some sort of tie to a transportation function in some way. The extraordinary transfers occurred when we had, financial or fiscal stress back during, almost 10 years ago, where there was transfers from the highway fund to the general fund, highway fund to other agencies that didn't necessarily, just for operations purposes, but those have since been eliminated. Those extraordinary transfers have since been eliminated by the work of really the legislature and the governor over time, bringing whittling those down. And that really did have an effect, especially on us for getting, I would say, jump-starting on Ike. Those reductions in transfers plus the increases, we got in revenue on sales tax really helped us get going on Ike. And also, we were required to finish up some of the T-Works projects that, got delayed as well. So that also helped us tackle that as well.
Yeah, on slide number 24, the governor's recommended budget. Under construction, it has construction inspection. There's an increase of 26 full-time employees.
Yeah, those are the engineers. Those are the engineering techs. Those are the folks out in the field, in our field. So we have over 2,200 employees, or as far as a staffing force. And so yes, those would be all across the districts, out in our areas and sub areas.
So there would be a need for an additional 26?
Yes.
Addition?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Representative Bloom.
Thank you, Chairman Avery. Good afternoon. The aid to the locals, the transit, that's the thing that I get the most complaints about. And my hometown is Clay Center, and they claim there's just not enough to, a lot of our people. They literally don't have cars, and these buses are really, really important to them. And they claim they're going broke, and they can't. And I've called your department, and so at least 1.3 million was added. I thank you for that. Of course, everybody could always use more, but this one is going to be a little strange, and you're probably aware of it. But we have a lot of Mennonite, and they go down Highway 15 at 10:30 at night, and it's coal black, and they have a little tiny light on the back, and you think it's a car coming instead of they're going. I've almost hit them several times. Everybody's complaining about them. I don't know if you can do anything or not, but somebody's going to be slaughtered someday. These truckers come over the hill 65 miles an hour. They have no warning, and these horses are just plopping right down the road, But there's going to be a time when somebody's coming and you can't get around them. And that's big. In my district, that is the biggest complaint, the people that live around there, that they're scared to death these people are going to get murdered on the road because in their horse and buggies.
Well, there you go. Thank you. We can take that back to the traffic safety folks. And
I've asked them and they put up signs and stuff, but what else can you do? It's America. If they want to go down the road, probably, and it's religion, so I doubt if you can do anything. But if there's anything you could possibly do, it should be done. But then again, I guess maybe it's just up to them. Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, no further questions. Thank you very much. All right, we will move on. We'll have testimony from Travis Lowe with Economic Lifelines discussing the Special City, County, and Highway Fund. Thanks for joining us today, Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. My name is Travis Lowe from the Braden Hyde & Loan Associates firm, here today representing Economic Lifelines. Economic Lifelines serves as a coalition of Kansas transportation infrastructure supporting organizations. We're proud to have over 80 members. That consists of private businesses, trade associations, local chambers, and local units of government located here in Kansas that all support transportation infrastructure. And on behalf of Economic Lifelines, while the committee deliberates the Department of Transportation budget, we like to bring attention to the Special City County Highway Fund and ask for your restoring an intended transfer of collected commercial vehicle registration fees that are destined to that Special City County Highway Fund. As a reminder, and noted by KDOT in their previous presentation, the Special City County Highway Fund is separate from the State Highway Fund, two different funds, and admittingly in this building, we probably spend more time talking about the State Highway Fund, and so we're excited to talk about the Special City and County Highway Fund today. It is used to finance local road and city construction and maintenance, and it is funded, as KDOT mentioned earlier, 1/3 of all state motor fuel sales tax goes to the Special City County Highway Fund. As a reminder, the other 2/3 goes to the State Highway Fund. So we're just talking about that 1/3 that goes to Special City County Highway Fund, and we appreciate that. The other funding source is revenue collected from the commercial vehicle fee, commercial vehicles, and that varies based on the size of the motor vehicle, their gross vehicle weight, and their age. But that's why we're here today. While both of these funding sources are in statute, the scheduled transfer from that commercial vehicle fee that's been collected has actually not made it to the Special City County Highway Fund in quite some time. It's actually been part of a proviso that's been baked into the base budget for our understanding for quite a long time, several years. So this is not the action of this committee or your counterpart in Senate Ways and Means or even in a conference committee manually have an amendment to strike that. It's actually my understanding it's baked in to the existing budget bill, and in this case, House Bill 2007. So the commercial vehicle fees are being collected. They're being sent to the State General Fund, but statutorily, it's not making it over to the Special County Highway Fund, which results in about a $10 to $12 million shortfall in what that program would have available to our local counties and cities for their road maintenance. It is our respectful request on behalf of Economic Lifelines to restore this scheduled transfer. I believe it's located on page 321 of House Bill 2007. I know you don't have that handy, but we are talking about your base budget bill. And we do know that the local needs are growing. We've had a lot of conversations lately with the Department of Transportation talking about how the infrastructure costs, just the dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. So we really do appreciate the local units having that money, what's been collected for that purpose. Because what we don't want to do is see that shortfall be made up in other things like property taxes. And Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Any questions for Travis? All right, well, thank you, Travis, appreciate it. Along with Travis's testimony, his oral testimony, Travis Grauer holds with the Motor Carriers Association. There's written testimony on our desks as well. If you could spend some time looking at both of those. Is there any further questions or comments for the committee? If not, we're